Falcopani. Here we have a Sivav. We're going to get to the denouement today.
Okay.
Falcopani, my baby insurance, a postcode look Rabbi Elzer. Maybe we should pass like Rabbi Elzer. Of a good Achronim totally so Talmud Divrim, and the great Achronim tried to find a reason for them. For them. Berichu Pipulim, they spoke at length. The difficult Pipulim is obviously a negative, a pejorative term here in how intellectual acrobatics.
Mhm.
Shakasheli note so the Dina Alpi says it's difficult to build a foundation for halacha based on their pilpulim. Achal shtav, but now zachinu shnitpas orza hagadol. The new orza, I guess an expanded orza was published. One of the Rishonim from the 14th century. No, earlier, the 13th century. Vubir tam momini mukam, and he explains their reason and their logic in Simon Shim Kovches. Voleh b'konei achadin varenu hakodmim, and it goes in one branch with our previous words. V'zeh Shona. V'nira beinai ani amechaber. To me, it seems I, the author, the Yisok halacha the Chodosh b'chutzretz the Rabbanon, the Tanan, kol korbanot tzibur chulei chutz min omer. Right, so we saw that Mishnah in Menachos. We said that all korbanot tzibur can come from Chutz except from
Mhm.
the Omer. It's going to come there to Yisok because it's going to have to come place which is chayav in Chodosh. Sasim Tana
Okay.
Tana gives us the stam Mishnah. The Chodosh Chutz to Rabbanon. The Chodesh Chutz is Kid Rabbanon. The Midoraisa word the Midoraisa Hayabam Chutz Laretz. So it would come Chutz Laretz the Haba Hatalia. Those are the two things are linked, as we saw. Come Gemara B'Chule. Command look at Tanya Tanya Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Omer Omer Bam Chutz Laretz. So he holds comes to Chutz Laretz. He is the Chule Kasar B'Chodesh Chutz Laretz. He's the big holds Chodesh Chutz Laretz B'Chule. Came with the Raisa, and since it's a Raisa in Chutz Laretz, are Kruvin Amir Krivin. Therefore, you can also bring the korban home as a korban from chutzlaritz.
Mhm.
From this, you learn the haba of Talia, that they're linked to each other. Nachman, I'm not sure this is Rabbi Yechon. Uh, uh, no, Nachman of Yehuda. It's a Mishnah. Tanakama didu nami sava de Rabbana. Uh, um, not sure which one he's referring to, but in any event, uh, uh, Stam Adif Tvei. Now, till now, we're saying that probably the Stam Mishnah um, in let's go back up a bit here a bit. Uh, so we're saying that uh, because the Mishnah Orla is superior, right?
Right, because it was Star Mishnah.
Right? Mishnah Orla, Mishum Neshema Ustam Chag Machlokas, kind of Hilchos Psikta Shisham Chodosh, right? It says it clearly, outright, Chodosh Orla Kilaim Divrei Seifrim. Sorry, Chodesh is Orla is halacha, halacha Moshe Sinai, and Klaim is Dibur Tzayim, Ayin Sham. So therefore, it's Hilchos Psikta. So therefore, we prefer the Mishnah Orla, which is a stam Mishnah like Rabbi Eliezer. But the Mishnah,
Mhm.
the Mishnah Menachos, however, is stam Mishnah like Rabbi. And until now, we
Right.
were saying we can't paskin like it, but now we're saying the Or Zahura says explicitly paskins like it. And I move to here. Uh, Vaistamadi Tvei. The Tali by the Karbonos. He has a different reason. Because it's like Karbonos. Kahi the parak
Mhm.
echadini momros. Chulei mishum the Tailo gabi hilchos of the dina. Evidently, there's a Mishnah there in Musanejah where it says that we pass like that's not Mishnah because it's been koimoi. It's in the place where it should be. It's in the place that's talking about dinim, right? So
Mhm.
Mishnah about dinim, it's talking about dinim, and therefore in Sanhedrin, therefore that's how he passed like it. And Hilchach Hachinami Hai Stam Odiv. This stam is Odiv because it's been koimoy. It's a menachos. It's talking about menachos oimer. Okay, it's not orla, but it's not its place. It's a
Mhm.
menachos. Um, Zai oime minchas siburu. Oime is a minchas siburu. But tiny look, I be minchas minchas in the tier minchas minchas. Aber hachab in the other place, tiny gab orla b'kilayim. Right? It's not. It says by orla kilayim v'lo diva ki stama. It's not as authoritative as this time Mishnah minchas. V'amrinan the parak something or other. A papa Ravuna braid Rabbi Yeshua Achli v'chulei kasabi chodesh b'chutzos rabbanon. So v'chulei v'im mishum rabbanon the bei Ravash v'chulei hayi raya love rayo. In that case in Menachos it says we saw this previously the rabbanon the bei Ravashi they were machmir on chodesh b'chutzos even though the other rabbanon Papa Ravuna braid Yeshua not machmir. So it says and we saw this previously. The fact that Rabban Bei Ravashi or Machmir Lav Rayu, it's not evidence. Ashkal Loboy Talmud Lismach Rabban Bei Ravashi. We find the Talmud does not rely on Rabban Bei Ravashi, Bixubas V'chulei, Mishum Neshul Famim, Hayutoin, because then there's a mistake, right?
Okay.
Ravina. Vada Amar Ravina Amarli Aim. Avuch Lo Hava Achil, your father wouldn't eat Chodesh L'Chutzlaretz. Beish Rashi Sabah Chodesh L'Chutzlaretz L'Raisa. That's not evidence. First, we can explain very easily the Sabra Chodesh Chutzos Rabbanon or Machmir. You can't be Machmir on the Rabbanon. You can be Machmir at the Rabbanon, right?
Right.
V'chulei the people of Perush Rabbeinu Shlomo, even going to Rashi. Avuad Ravina Hachi Ava Sabra. Yeah, it's true. Ravina's father had that way. Ravina Gufa, but Ravina himself, Efshon the Sabra, the Avi the Rabbanon. Maybe holds that it's the Rabbanon. But two, and furthermore, holy by Mishnayos Vatanoim, since the Mishnayos and the Tanoim, Chalukim Badavar, they argue about it. Because Zina Nami Amaroim, Dikadav the Hachi, Dikadav the Hachi. See, Amaroim that did this way, and Amaroim did that way. There's no, in the Gemara, there's no definitive psak.
Right.
Whether it applies or not. Dikadav the sorry, because Shasad Chak, we live in a difficult situation in northern regions where it's very hard to get Yoshon. East only Smachastam Mishnah, we can rely on the generic Mishnah about Tanoim V'Amoraim and the Tanoim V'Amoraim side with Chodesh Putzos to Rabbanon. But Lo Cheshin L'Sveika, and we're not concerned with the Suffolk. Okay, Ad Kalashon. Klamar, Moses Amen. The suffix inuzu korema beslim lav. We're not concerned with the suffix if it was
planted before Pesach.
Or not. And he's also he's marked he's gal because suffix the Rabbanu Kula obviously. He's gal on Tame Rabbi Senim Akilim. According to this, the words of the reason for our rabbis who are lenient are clear. And they are clear like the sun in the afternoon. And we're the Gdolim who toiled mightily to find out there. If you go to that Tsar Medina Shalonu, according to the great, the proportion of great anguish that there is from this prohibition of archon currencies, if they saw this or Zarua, they wouldn't have used intellectual gymnastics. Because the pathway is smooth before us. From an ancient Gon, Zarua, a Rabo Shema Ram Rutenberg, Rabo Shalarosh. Okay, obviously that makes him ancient. Butamich Rabbeinu Bali Taisvis. Maybe it's even from the 13th century. I think it's it has to be the 13th century. Might even be from the 12th century. Anyway, it's even brought down Taisus, which means he's pretty early. Right? We shall rejoice. He's not finished though. He's going to take it to an even further extent.
Okay.
You want to stop here for today?
No, we can do a little bit more, but that's in the upshot is that the Stam Mishnah in Menachos, because it's in its place, it overrides the Stam Mishnah
Yes.
in Orla.
Right.
And, okay. Boy, still got a lot to say, don't he?
To speak about further. Okay, he really continues over here in Yud Ches. Okay, obviously some of the stuff is relevant, but I want to skip to here.
Okay.
He's talking about questions about Suffolk, right? When maybe it was planned to be after Pesach, before Pesach, that's Suffolk. So he says the Chol Dvarim Elu Uba Ashkenaz, Uba Poland, Hasamuch Law. That makes sense in Ashkenaz and Poland, which is adjacent to Ashkenaz, to Germany. The Rov Hashem Yisrael Pesach. Most years the planned before Pesach. Aber bina Salem Medinas Russia. But in our country, Russia ain't got something cloud. It's no cloud at all. It's after Pesach. The Lifnei Pesach ain't a dying man's real cloud. Okay, so the orders of rule we can rely on a suffix, right? Suffix Rabbanon L'Kula, it's only the Rabbanon Chutzlarts. Okay, fine. But in Russia, there's no suffix. It's clearly after Pesach. So it should definitely be also the Rabbanon. What good does it do us? Okay. In Loban Mikre Rechoka, maybe in a remote chance, Pam Lestrim Shana, once every 20 years. I guess the Pesach is very late and spring is very early, so then they can plant before Pesach. Veilanu Shul Metra Chodosh. And we're left back to square one, right? We have no Heter Chodosh. Now, on certain we say, better not to tell them. You know, right. What they don't know won't be supposed to be an Isser. Okay? There's another language which Chazal use, which is Mutar Shioch Yisrael Basar Tmusos Shchutos Ayachlu Yisrael Basar Tmusos Nevelos. Best that the Jews eat dead animal. What did you I forgot what I just said. Yeah, they should eat dead animals which were slaughtered. Dead animals that just died. In other words, at least find some way to make it better. But here we don't have such a thing, right? It's the rice, but it's the rice. We don't say that mutav shu shoyigin, not to sell anybody. And in contrast and direct proportion to this, it's impossible to be careful about this. Because the harvest by us is in Av. You have to wait 8 months for new grain. In three, based on the progress of the produce, in 3 countries, you make a leap year if necessary. When Yehuda's one down coast, everybody's happy. Perish Rashi, Mishabika Behuda. The Shabika Behuda Ma'amr Shalosh Taim, when it already was the grain already grew. The first grain grew in Yehuda, but in the other 2 countries, Galil and Eber Yarden, it hasn't yet grown. They need to extend the month. But that makes Chodosh last longer. Right? So, in other words, evidently most people lived in Yehuda, and they were upset when they had to be inconvenienced by waiting along for Eber Yarden and the Golden. Now, one month was made a big difference to them and extended Isser Chodosh. Right? Become a kosher later. How there was us lahamtin shmona chadashim mechel schitim sorim v'shibolet shul. How can we make wait so long to refrain from wheat, barley, and oats. Shemizelsin greifen. From this we make groats, which are a kind of cereal, I guess, like
Mhm.
oatmeal. That's all we eat. And especially drinking beer. Kol choref. And only a few people are careful about this. It's very difficult for them. Many people come to find there. Halobasi for some, which you can find in their books. Vrabim, Banu Aheter She'ena Noeg B'Shel Akum. They're those who built on the heter that doesn't reply to grain of chutzlaretz. But there's a kosheli smoke. It's difficult to run the setting, which comes out of the Sifu Dalit, which we skip. Somebody wanted to save the drinking of beer. Because the beverage which comes out of the grain that does not have status of grain comes this is also difficult. The taste which comes out is a primary taste of rice. So I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. But anyway, all these barbers ever see is going to come back to this later on. Okay. The next one is the punchline number 2. So let's get stop here.
We can keep going. One more.
The cliffhanger. Okay. However, now that we were zeichen to this planted life for the tzaddik, atoli yishrei leiv simcha. Now, for those straight of heart, there's simcha. There's no question. The Elam Soibik Rabbeinu Baruch Bri Bov Rabbeinu Abigar Kohen Rabbi Yitzchak Baal or Zarua Rabbeinu Menachem Miyom Tzedek Umordechai Gadol Mariel. All those great Ashkenazic Gedolim. The Chodosh Baruch Chutzratz Rabbana. Moshe Be Aretz Zarua She Tosam Abura. Like to Be Aretz Zarua explain their clear-cut perspective. We have this Tam Mishnah Menachos which overcomes the Stam Mishnah Orla. Rabbi Lezer Rabbanah Rabbana. And according to these Rishonim, this is do the Omer. Bakashem Mevim Omer, place there is no carbon over can be brought. Shem and Chodesh no way. Clean about you, so the Reish Bel Kol Karbanos. Ve'en Lisho Ech De'echem Shalom Arkein. Can't ask how this is what in Reish Chal Dim Lo Yishishu. If they didn't take root before they're us until the next Omer, that we don't bring Omer from this. We from the beginning of your harvest and not from the end of the harvest. And these stragglers are the end of the harvest. Karbanos. Ayin Shop. Hooray, the Isser Chodosh Eino Toli B'Omer. Comes that the Isser Chodosh is not linked to Omer. Oh, I see. So in other words, this is saying, no, we see things from which the carbon Omer doesn't come, even though it's not because, even though the Chodosh does apply to them. Right, till now, saying they must be linked. If Chodesh, if to bring Korban over them, Chodesh must apply. If Chodesh doesn't apply, you can't bring Korban over from them. There's direct linkage. But you don't see no saying that like that. You see that grain, which didn't take root before the previous Omer, it can't be used the next year for Korban Omer. Why not? It's still Chodesh because of this halacha of stragglers. Because this is not Tircha this year, it's still Tircha the year before. So we see that there's no linkage necessarily. The linkage doesn't necessarily apply. Right?
Okay.
Did you get that? So
not quite. One more time.
Okay. Until now, we're assuming that Chodesh and Omer are linked. Wherever Chodesh applies, you can't bring from there Korban Omer.
Right.
I'm sorry, wherever Chodesh does not apply, you can't bring from there Korban Omer. Wherever Chodesh does apply, you can bring from there Korban Omer. And the two are linked, right? Chodesh Omer, Omer Chodesh, right?
Right.
So here's so shows case they're not linked. There's another case of somewhere from which you can't be a carbon omer, even though it is chayv chodosh.
Because it took root right after Pesach, and that
Where it took
is
root right after Pesach, and by the time next year comes along, it's the last of the harvest of the previous year.
right.
So we see that the other reasons why carbon omer doesn't come from gain, besides the fact that maybe chodesh doesn't apply to it. So let's say also here that the omer doesn't come from chutz is not contingent whether chodesh is also chutz or not. Maybe it's a special new halacha. Omer doesn't come from chutz. Who says they're linked to each other, right? Already it's a chodesh ain't totally b'omer. Achzel kosher klal. That's what they want. The vada ain't totally b'zriyasu aplati shel ish hazeh. It totally doesn't have to do with a specific person's planting. Now, with this guy planted late, right? His specific grain is late grain, right? And therefore, it's a special halacha by saying, "Ava b'makam totally vadai," but certainly the place where from which omer comes is linked directly to chodesh. Whether your specific grain can be the omer, there can be many feeling why your grain can't be the omer. I don't know if many, at least one. But where omer can come from, that has to do with the status of the land, not specific produce. And either the land is chayim and omer or patur from omer. And that can only be determined by chodesh or not chodesh. Okay. Mokum totally body. Mokum shemisham pasul carbon omer. From a chutzlaretz kam isu chodesh einbo. Because the very nature of chodesh and omer is intrinsically linked in the chumash, right? So that in the Rambam obviously Rambam disagrees with this because Rambam holds chodesh also be the rights of chutzlaretz, and still you can't bring carbon omer from chutzlaretz. Why? Fine, we know the Rambam is not going to end up like us. How did Rabbi say this really came? But all these great Ashkenazic Rishonim do all that way. Maybe for Rosh and Rai, this really comes to the Rambam. It's not clear what they hold. Yeshem Medina ain't a paski kimish to kokar mitzvah tzibur. Maybe it's true they hold chodesh chutzlaretz the Raisa, but maybe they also hold the Sfeik Rabbi Yosef the Rabbanim chutzlaretz. They don't pass to them because they don't pass to hilchos halachos of kachim, right? They only pass to halachos of orachaim. But so we don't know what they would hold. Maybe they hold that it's linked, then you can bring carbon omer chutzlaretz. They don't speak about these things. They hold, however, the establishment of the Orla is superior. Well, the reason we wrote Sif Dalet Hilchos HaPsikta, and there's no difference as far as that goes. And now in Chaf, he gives his final answer. But the thing is, the Aruch HaShulchan
looks like it skips.
The Aruch HaShulchan, it's defective. This Aruch HaShulchan, from which I took this. So I don't have all of Chaf here. So
all right, so let's pick that up next time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What about Choloma? Well, let me turn the record first.